Hi, today we'll be learning about functions in Python. So firstly, what are functions? Functions are sections of code that are executed when they are called, and they also return a value. And that part's pretty important because compared to procedures, functions return a value whereas procedures don't. So that's a key difference between functions and procedures. Why are functions used? Functions do not have to be rewritten as they can be executed anytime they're called. So programmers don't have to spend time rewriting sections of code. They can simply call a function and it would perform the same task every time. And finally, how are functions written in Python? So we start off with the keyword def, which is just defining the function. Then we have our function name, which in this case is just func1, which is function1. And then we have arguments of the function, which are put in brackets. So here, in this case, we have two arguments, argument 1 and argument 2. And then we have a colon. And then every part inside the function has to be indented. And at the end, we have our return statement, which is going to be returning the output. And to call a function, all we have to do is write the function name outside of the function, of course, and pass in the two arguments in the same order. So in this case, A would correspond to argument 1 and B would correspond to argument 2. So let's look at some examples. Let's do a function to add two numbers together. So first we start off with def, which is the keyword to define a function. Then we need the function name, which in this case will be sum. And then our arguments. We just need two arguments here because all you want to do is add two numbers together. And these arguments can also be called parameters. And then you need a colon, and then anything inside the function should be indented. So all we need to do is add the two numbers together. So we'll just store it in another variable called add. Add is equal to num1 plus num2, and then at the end num2, and at the end we just return add. So now outside of the function, for this part to run, we just have to call it. So we call it by writing the function name sum and then passing in the two arguments. So here we'll do 2, 3, and we just have to print this out to look at the value. So print, and then we're calling the function with 2, 3, which is being passed as the arguments. And as you can see, we get 5. So what we can also do to store the returned value in a variable is that we can just store it in we can just do a, for example, is equal to, and then we just call our function. So now any value that's returned will be stored into the variable that is used to call it. So now all you can do is just print a, and we should get the same value. So yeah, as you can see, we get 5. So that's how you can call a function, and you can also store the returned value in a variable. It's also important to note that when writing functions that return more than one value, we have to call the function differently if we want to split the values up. So for example, if we have a function called maths with the parameters num1 and num2, has to be a comma, and this function simply adds the two numbers together and multiplies the two numbers together and returns both of them. So we'll store both of that in two different variables. Num1 times num2. And then we have to return it on one line like this. So now if we call the function, let's say a is equal to, or test is equal to add, maths, because that's the function name, and 2, 3, and we want to print out what test is. So if we run that, as you can see, we get 5 and 6. So 5 is the addition of 2 and 3, and 6 is the multiplication of 2 and 3. But if we want to split it, like if we want to get 5 separately and 6 separately, we have to write it like this. So we'd have to write as sum, comma, product. And this comma is what causes the two values to be split up. So now we can print it out separately and test if it works. So I print out sum and then product on two different lines. As you can see, we get 5 and 6. So whatever values are returned from the function is split up in the same order that the function is called using the two variables. So the value of add will be stored in sum and the value of multiply will be stored in product. And then we can split up the two values that are returned.